Hi, Jianggan. How are you doing? How you doing this? How was your week?
Yeah. Hey, Jianggan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, the week has been good. A bit hectic. Been eating too much beef. Other than that,
That's a bad thing. Eating too much beef.
yeah, too much. Like,
Have you been watching Yellowstone? Do you have gout or something?
what?
Is
What?
this a problem for you?
Hold on. Sorry, what are you saying? Too much Yellowstone?
Do you have gout? Is eating too much beef like a
I,
health problem? Like, what do you mean it's a
I
problem?
don't have gout, but we eat too much of the same thing. You sort of want something new, right?
If you're at Yellowstone,
Not sure if I'm catching it.
ignore him. It's not important. You haven't watched
I
the
don't
TV
think
show
John
Yellowstone
watches
yet? Come
Yellowstone.
on.
Yeah. He has a job. He has things to do.
Yeah, he has a real job, guys. Come on, that is true. He's a real job. Makes real
Yeah,
money.
yeah. And when I have time, I watch TikTok.
Hello, barbarians, and welcome to the 33rd episode of the LLB podcast. Today, Dave's joining me in the studio with a little miscommunication. Jianggan from his home, and then Jianggan from Singapore, and Joon from his home.
Oh, it's a weekday. Bloody hell! It's a weekday. I'm in the office. I mean, we should be in the office.
Yeah,
on
it's hard. It's hard for Jianggan to join us on weekdays, but thank you for taking the time. So let's just kick off because we don't have much time probably for Jianggan. Jianggan, you really wanted to talk about Trump, right? You were like excited to talk about Trump.
No, it's not. I mean,
Why are we talking about Trump?
Actually, I
Okay,
Why
okay.
did you guys pick this topic?
okay. I
This
mean,
is not a
gonna be the
politics
next
podcast.
president.
I'm not excited about talking about Trump because because I'm a fan of Trump, or whatever. But I just feel that the news sources that we have. I mean, I'm not from America. I don't follow. I mean, I don't have a lot of people I talk to about the political situation there, and I think based out of Asia, the access to media is actually limited, right? You look at the mainstream media, you hear. I mean, you hear very limited stories about Trump, and all the stories here about Trump are
People
basically
don't care either, right?
Hmm?
Do people care out here? They should.
Like who? Like if you talk about
Indirectly.
ordinary people don't care about anything aside from sort of living costs and stuff, which is fair,
Okay,
right?
that's
Because
true. That's
yeah,
true. Yeah,
that's
that's
true.
true.
Inflation is everywhere, and of course, as most people will say that the government in your particular country do something about it. But we all know that that whatever happens in the US, I mean, the upcoming election would have global consequences, and
Correct. Yeah.
and would do. I read a bit of analysis from media, from some of the sort of blog posts, but I will have to say that okay, whatever I've read is probably very superficial. And the two of you who are sharing the same mic with frugality are from the US, so you have better access to the information, and you have better access to the sentiment on the ground. I mean, even though you are not on the ground, but you probably have better channels. So I just try to understand exactly what is happening there. Why is Trump so popular? Is he going to win the election? And how is he going to behave if he wins the election? Because yeah, so just here's my curiosity.
Hold on. So before we tackle those topics, which I think is a good starting point, why should the people care about the U.S. election then if they're not in the United States? I just kind of want to clarify that first.
If you are a business owner in Southeast Asia doing export business, you probably are curious about what the trade policies will become afterwards.
That's true.
And if you are a stock market investor, in any market, you probably care about what the economic policy is going to be like, and whether people have more confidence, etc. If you are ordinary people trying to earn a living, maybe you should not care about the U.S. election, but you know that this will probably have some implication on you.
Joon, what do you think? Why should people care?
I think the same, right? It's U.S. needs. I mean, things that happen in the States would flow down here in terms of inflation, trade stuff, even like how capital is spent. You could even say culture.
I think
what movies, features, and rest.
I mean, I think it's more than that, right? Like most countries in this part of the world have sovereign wealth funds. And where do we think the majority of those sovereign wealth fund assets are invested, right? I mean, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but the U.S. essentially between U.S. Equity, debt, and all the various other asset classes, I think it adds up to be like, if not the majority, then certainly the plurality of allocation from those sovereign wealth funds globally, right? Because there's really no other place to put your money if you're investing that kind of capital. There's no other country that has the combination of regulatory environment, business friendliness, liquidity, and just overall stability. There's really no other choices. So, you have any, if you have a sovereign wealth fund, and if you're invested in a sovereign wealth fund, which by law, most people are in this part of the world, then you should care very much what happens in the US because that's your retirement.
I think for most people, the sovereign wealth fund is probably too far away from them, right? I mean, it's I mean, technically
Well, in their mind, but literally, I don't think so. People talk about EPF here all the time.
Yeah, but I don't think they realize
EPF, MPF. I mean, these are like I don't know. I look at a local newspaper and I see articles about EPF, MPF on a fairly regular basis.
those are pension funds.
Those are the pension funds
but
in Malaysia
even
and Singapore.
EPF doesn't. I mean, the money doesn't go to the sovereign wealth fund, right? It's separate.
It's a different fund. Our sovereign wealth fund
Yeah,
is Ghana.
okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because
EPF is
But
it's a
But anyway,
pension
so
fund. It's
your
a
money is
workers' fund.
somewhere.
but the point's the point
You have money.
the point is the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll affect very macro
Yeah.
investment
Yeah.
decisions
Yeah,
on the
it
country.
does.
And I think so far in the past 2 years, right, no Southeast Asian country has increased their exposure to the US. They have been cutting back and
You think so?
reducing it.
But where are they putting their money? China?
Yes,
No,
yes.
not China. Definitely not China.
Yeah, they're spreading out like the amount of T-bills especially, right, has stayed stagnant or is going down.
But that's a macro, right? So that could just be like certain countries divesting in T-bills, right? Like the biggest investor of
I
US
think
T-bills
if you
is the US actually, right? So are you talking about
Yes, of course.
foreign investment ex China in T-bills in the US? I'm not sure what number you're referring to.
Where's the US as biggest investor? Is that the US as the government or US as the economy?
Well, it's US economy.
I think the government is the economy, right? It's very tied together.
I would argue it's not.
What would Trump do? Like I think he said it, right? More trade wars, less conflict. So maybe that's a good platform.
Like okay, for the two of you, well, foreign states, tell us who is Trump?
Who is Trump? Tell us why Trump is.
I mean, the answer is really
why is he so
quite
liked?
obvious, right? Because, okay, so let's go back to the initial argument that people, for the most part, are going to be logical and they're going to make self-motivated decisions that are in their own best interest, right? So let's use that as our premise, right? That these people aren't like rubes or being tricked.
Yeah.
So there's this, I don't buy that argument. I think that's a very specious argument and honestly quite offensive to anyone on either side of the conversation. So, I mean, I think the answer to this question for me, is quite straightforward. He's going to win because people feel like he represents their interests better than the incumbent party, right? So I think you have to, that's like the core reason why I think he's going to win. And first of all, I don't actually have a strong preference either way. I consider myself an independent voter. I was progressive when I was younger, and now I'm more independent. Anyway, so I think you have to think about Trump. The way I think about Trump is in the context of, there's this argument of like the great man in history versus a moment in time, right? Whether the person that we're talking about is a function of the macro conditions that they existed, or do they like create the macro conditions that they existed, right? So if you want to use like a really basic argument or like a let's take Hitler. Hitler is a good example of this, right? I'm not saying Trump is like Hitler in any way. I'm not inferring, but some similarities. No, let's not go there. But we're not.
We're not trying to.
Let's not go there. We're not going there. So you ask the question like, was someone like Hitler always going to happen just because of the macro conditions that existed in the the Weimar Republic, circa 1930, like post World War I, right? Or was he like singular in creating that environment, right? And I'm on the camp that people and personalities are usually facilitated by the macro conditions that exist around them, for the most part, right? Of course, it's a spectrum. It's both. It's a spectrum, but like you lean one way, or there's going to be more than the other, right? So the way I look at Trump is I just think that, we talk about people like this all the time, right? People aren't more racist because Donald Trump is president, right? He's just a reaction to the conditions that have already existed around him. And what I mean by that is I think what you have to really go back, we talked about this a little bit last time, you have to go back a couple of decades in US history, right? I think what a lot of people in our social circles don't understand is they look at someone like Donald Trump and they're like, this guy is obviously crazy. Like, why would anyone in their right mind support him, right? But then that's because our interests are fundamentally disaligned with, I would argue, a good 50% of the population, right? So you think about like elite media, elite business leaders, like higher echelons, right? Let me ask you guys a question. Do you know what the number one predictor of which party you will vote for in the US is? Like, use number one indicator. Like, is it race? Is it geography? Is it
geography.
what do you guys think?
I think geography.
I think
Race?
think
Okay,
race.
Jianggan, what do you think?
I don't know it well enough to say. I don't know.
Okay, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. It's a leading question. It's how educated you are. The more the higher you go in the educational ladder, the more likely you are to vote Democratic.
You mean like standard education, like school, like university degree?
Higher
like
education.
master.
Yeah, higher education. So good point. Clarification. Higher education, right? I don't remember the stats off the top of my head, but you can Google this. This is public information, quite easy to find. But essentially, the higher you go in higher ed, so like a 2-year associate's, a 4-year bachelor, a master's, PhD, doctorate, blah, 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 the more likely you are to become.
I read it's a recent thing. Like this shift happened in the 70s, where educated people become more liberal because the education system has liberal education instead
Correct.
of conservative
This is, yeah.
education. It was not like that prior to
Well,
the
we talked about this
70s.
last time, right? Like we were saying, like Western elite institutions have typically been a bastion of liberal values since, the 1970s and 1980s, right?
Yeah.
But this is what's created
Yeah.
like a leadership class that exists in the US who you could argue have become more and more out of touch with what, let's just call them the non-elite, the majority, I don't want to
of
say
the
the majority, but
population.
like a substantial amount of the population actually want. And if you look at what's happened to that
Mhm.
segment of the population, you can make a very strong argument the last like 30, 40 years have not been very good for them, right? You look at the hollowing out of American manufacturing, the basically dispowerment of American labor unions. So what were once, decent jobs, you could make like 70, 80K, 100K a year. Those jobs don't exist anymore, right? Those have been outsourced to someone else. And those people didn't benefit, right? The workers didn't benefit. The people that benefit were the business owners, the politicians, and the media people that write about them, but they don't. They're disassociated, right? They don't have that connection. Tech is a great example. Tech obviously mostly favors higher, more educated workers, right? So they've made a lot of money. The economy has grown. GDP has grown. A lot of wealth has been created, but that wealth is concentrated in a small minority of the population. Media for the most part, up until the last decade, I would argue even the last 5 years, has been mostly controlled by liberal elites. So there's this huge disconnect that now exists with people in power. I would argue, and especially on the Democrat side, have become more and more disconnected from the what you would consider the base of the right, right? So that the base of the right basically feel like these people no longer represent my values and my interests and what I care about. So, when people say, why would you vote for Donald Trump? I'm like, I probably wouldn't. I'm not sure I would vote for him personally. But if I was someone living in middle America, which I am from, and I know people from middle America, they could make a very convincing argument that, Donald Trump is someone that represents my interests. And of course, everyone has a priority stack.
It's very varied. It's very
Right.
nuanced.
Yeah. But I think that's the simplest answer is because a lot of people feel disenfranchised by the current government in the US, and they see Donald Trump as one of the only ways that they can change that or affect change on a political level. And he also happens to be just a very charismatic human being, right? So that certainly helps. But that's my assessment of why it's popular.
What do you think it was more of the machine understanding this dynamic? Like, because there are some presidents in history that saw that change and the other parties did see it, so they campaign around that. Do you think it was he knew that or the machine knew that and it kind of just fell together and then that he was just answering that pain point?
He's not a machine candidate. If you remember his first election bid, he was not
That's true.
he was not the clear front runner, right? He had to go through a fairly contentious primary cycle, which is similar to what's happening now. Where there was, I remember at that time, it was something crazy. It was like 10 or 12 primary. We're talking about like the 2016 election cycle in the US. At the time, there were like 12 people running in the Republican primary. And he was by far not what you would call the institutional candidate. I don't remember who the institutional candidate was. Probably like Romney or something.
Something like that.
Someone like that, right? He was quite low on the list, but because he was so popular and his messaging resonated so strongly that eventually he won. He won the primary, and now he is essentially, for all intents and purposes, the face of the Republican Party in the U.S.
So basically, you think he kind of rose to the occasion. Like the platform was there, the macro was set, and it was just right timing and the right messaging.
Yeah.
Because I think like it's very important to understand it's not like everyone in the Republican Party is like homogenous and the same and he fits. It's just more like there's a lot of issues, there's real pain points that are varied.
So-
Correct.
He's the only one that can kind of fill that
Yeah, correct.
because it's a two-party system.
Yeah, correct.
So,
I think that's my argument. Is he is a product of his environment.
Do you believe weak times create strong leaders and strong times create weak leaders?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Trump is strong. Then.
He is a strong man when I think that appeals to certain.
That's a persona.
Yeah, it's a persona.
Like he fills out. I mean, that's the values that resonate in the
See,
base.
everything in history always happens.
one question I have is that so people around me keep saying that he's crazy since like 2015, and I know that some of my friends actually cried the night he won. I don't have any strong feeling either way, but I find that interesting, right? Some people around us are really against him, and everyone's saying
Trump.
Oh, Trump. Okay.
Trump. Everyone's saying that he's crazy, but I think for somebody who has managed business for so many years, well, how successful that is up to debate. And for somebody who won a presidential election, for someone who was actually there for 4 years, is being crazy, or the way we perceive him or being crazy, the facade that he puts on our side, like deliberately, is a tactic, as tactic, right? Because it helps him sort of gain popularity. He says the things that people want to hear, or at least his support base wants to hear. On the flip side, you have the Democrats who probably know that if they stick to whatever they are sticking to, they're going to lose this election. What kind of calculations do they have? And or is there because of some, I don't know, personal interest or some politics within the party that led them to do things like not having Kennedy as a candidate, for example, that will reduce their chances of winning?
Let's just stop a question there. Like, what do you mean by crazy? Because crazy is such a broad thing.
I don't know.
Right? Like, what is
Crazy is what the media
what does that
paints
actually
him to
mean?
be.
Crazy.
I don't know.
Such a-
I don't know. I'm just reiterating something that people have been telling me, saying that, oh, this guy's crazy. How can he be the president? I don't know what crazy is. I don't vote in American elections, but this thing impacts the global economy, so that's why I care about it. So I don't know what crazy means in this case.
My hypothesis would be that it's crazy against someone's personal values, and the media amplifies that and makes it more hysterical, I think. I mean, that'd be my best. I don't know. I don't know who you talk to, but like from what I've seen, that'd be my guess. I don't know. Dave agrees on that.
People just say it's unprecedented.
I mean, he's definitely not conventional, right? And that could be something that people are. To me, I also find it jarring. Like, also, I don't prefer my president to act that way. But then again, I do think about this a lot. Like, I wonder how many presidents, as a persona that you see versus how they are being, in the back rooms when no one's looking, like how do they really act? Right? You don't know. So
you don't know.
You don't know. So like, it's yeah. I mean, if anything, maybe that's how he always is all the time, and that's probably better. You know what you're doing. I don't know.
But this is my point exactly, right? I would venture to guess that people you're talking to, Jianggan, probably went to like 4-year institutions, have pretty good jobs, liberal elites. No, I'm assuming. I'm making an assumption, right? But this is my point, right? So they see someone who they've been told by their peers, by all the media that they follow, that this guy is crazy. Let's just say crazy, right? But that's such a, like, my point is like, can they point to something specific or tangible, right? That he did that that will make them categorize him that way, right? And my point is like, whether they like it or not, 40% of the population thinks that this guy is the best person to represent them, and you can't say that 40% of the population is crazy, right? You can't say like 100 million people in the U.S. are all crazy. That argument doesn't hold any water, right?
Yeah.
So that's where like for me, this attack kind of falls apart. If you want criticism, it's called criticism, right? But if you want to like point specific policies, specific agenda items, sure, that's I think all debatable.
I think a lot of it is the packaging. They just don't like the packaging. He's very divisive on purpose. He says controversial things. He says like morally ambiguous. He says morally wrong things. But of course, like that's like one of my important questions: can you separate the man from the politician, and is that important or not?
Do you?
So this is okay. So let's start like first about like the systemic reasons, right? So I would argue that Trump is actually the apotheosis of modern media consumption. No, I'm serious.
It's kind of true though.
No, I'm serious.
He's reacting
I'm
to the
serious.
systems in place.
I'm serious. I mean, think about it. Think about his background, right? This guy he's always been, he's a media person at the heart, like, you know, blah, 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 real estate development, but really he made all of his money in like branding and media. If you look at his business, where the majority of his actual money comes from, not necessarily real estate deals. It's like licensing his name out to whatever tower he's building and say Trump Hotel, Trump Plaza, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And then he did The Apprentice for 10 years, which is one of the highest rated shows.
Yeah.
So he understands media, right? Like he understands how to message and how to communicate with people. We're in an environment where essentially everything is condensed down to a 20-second TikTok clip or like a 240 character tweet. And he's not stupid. I think he understands this very well. And he creates these like, whether instinctively or not, that I don't know, but he understands on some level that these things that are really egregious, that sound awful, are the ones that are going to get the most traction. And he's just like, when I say he's the most politically talented person of his generation, of the century, so it's only 23 years, 24 years. No, I believe that. Yes, no, I believe that. I believe that. No, it's true. So
next century,
of the century of the last 24 years, it's certainly of the Republican Party. No other candidate has understood how to manipulate or like maneuver in the modern media ecosystem as well as he does.
I can understand what you mean by talent, because it's like I suspect there's a combination of it's somewhat natural, but it's also him understanding. And it just comes out that it works out for him. So.
I mean, he's legitimately a funny guy. Well, like whether you like the humor or not.
I hate it, but he's so entertaining.
He's entertaining. He's legitimately a very entertaining. Whatever you think about him personally, he's a very entertaining person. And like I said, he just understands how to like what messages will get the most traction, how to amplify it the best. He just knows.
I think people have trouble separating the man and the politics. And that gets a lot of confusion, because a lot of my contention with him is on person, like how he is as a person, right? And yeah, I mean, like the things he says, the values that he will expound, whether he means it or not, he's saying it and it has, impact and consequence. So, and I think that's just on a personal level, I don't like that. So, I mean, in terms of, I don't know about politics as well, because I don't follow his policies and the impact of those policies as well. And I think people mix them up. They see him as a bad person, and then therefore politics are bad, or they just forget to look at the other side of the aisle. What are the pain points that are people voting for? Right?
What's the most morally wrong thing a president can do?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right? To me, it's starting wars. Wars are terrible. They are just on a whole new high up there, super wrong morally. Yeah. And here you have Biden, right, who has no qualms about blowing things up. And Trump has always been anti-war, anti-conflict, and I respect him for that. So I think that's good morals.
Yeah, but morally as a person, he's actually has been found liable for sexual assault, right? That is actually proven. He still has a lot of pending court cases. I mean, I think the timing is very clear. It's an attack. Like New York State really hates him, but there are a lot of things like, where there's smoke, there's fire for sure, on a personal level. Of course, it will be hard to be proven because he was a president. People want to prosecute. Was there enough burden of proof to do real criminal trials versus civil trials, right? So there's a lot of hazy, fuzzy attacks against him, obviously, but I think there are a lot of wrong things as morally as a person he has definitely done for sure.
So
And at least, maybe the difference is that it's exposed. Maybe other presidents are just as egregious, but we don't see it, right? So I don't know. But that's my personal contention.
So what's happening to the other contenders? I mean, they look at Trump and they look at. I mean, I'm not looking into detail, but I look at a few clips of his opponents trying to sort of tell people that Trump is bad. I just feel that those guys are desperate, or those, I mean, ladies, whatever, are desperate because they're trying to say something that nobody cares. But they still say,
Yeah.
Is that because, I don't know, they're told by their advisors that saying anything else is too dangerous. You can't be associated with Trump. You have to, I don't know. I mean, why would people do that? Why would people do things which they probably know that it's not effective, unless, I mean, there's a purpose that I'm not aware of.
Who are you talking about? The Republican candidates or the there's no one on the Democrat side?
I mean, the other
Who you refer to specifically?
The other Republican candidates who have been like attacking Trump here
For the primaries?
Yeah.
In the primaries, people have shied away from making any moral judgments on Trump, actually.
So
this has been like a big criticism of like, arguably it's one of the reasons that the DeSantis campaign failed, because he always sort of tiptoed around the Trump issue. If you like go back and read his statements, when he's asked questions about Donald Trump, etc., he's always kind of been giving like these very like blasé answers that don't really answer anything. So I think,
because
I'm not sure what data point you're referring to.
Because he knew Trump was going to win, so that probably determines how he was saying things.
No, but this was when he was in the primary. He was running against him. Here's the truth, right? Like, Trump is incredibly popular among the Republican base. His favorability rating in the Republican Party. I read a poll from like Al Jazeera last week.
Al Jazeera.
It's like, I think 75% of Republicans will be very happy if Trump was the nominee, compared to I think like only like 32% or 35% on the Democrat side for Joe Biden. So I think
in that case, when you're running against Trump in primaries, what's your objective? Because you know you can't win.
They think they have a shot, right? So my point is like, he has like a very fervent stronghold on the Republican Party, right? So I don't know what the calculus is if I was DeSantis' campaign manager trying to run this, but basically I think the calculation for them is why they don't criticize him is they can't be seen as like overtly anti-Trump. So they have to like thread this like really thin line about like presenting themselves as a clear alternative to Donald Trump without actually criticizing him. Why? Because it hurts the party. No, because it hurts their chances, right? Because he has such a strong favorability rating among the Republican base.
Oh, I see.
Right? So that's why all the campaigns were basically doomed to fail on the Republican side. Right? They were trying to like basically walk through this like, do you think that's the right strategy, or the strategy would be to go out and attack the character? I don't know.
But
yeah, I wouldn't know about primary politics to answer that question, right? But I'm just saying, like, you need to have a clear message.
That's true.
My point is that this guy probably knew that they were definitely going to fail. So
I don't think so. I think a few years back, it wasn't as clear when he lost and when he's going through all these turmoil and controversies in the media, like at least on the media headlines, right?
It wasn't clear.
It wasn't clear. So I think people really thought they had a shot, at least 2 years ago.
Yeah, you're applying like 2020 hindsight. So
yeah.
So
now it's clear.
if you go back to when this whole, like, you could argue that the primaries started about like a year ago in the US, right? So about a year ago in the US, that was when, like, it was quite recently after Roe v. Wade, there was this huge referendum where during the midterm cycle, the Republicans lost by a significant margin. And a lot of the candidates that were put, I think actually every single candidate that was endorsed by Trump during that election cycle lost. And then that was also sort of like, we're talking about Ron DeSantis specifically, when Ron DeSantis was coming off of the post-COVID Florida high, where he basically ran, like, the argument that he made is, I had one of the best run states during COVID. Yeah. Look at how competent I am. So, like, if you look at it today, obviously they're all going to lose, right? But like 12 to 18 months ago, I don't think it was obvious at all.
You could even see by like Nikki Haley raising $70 million from the Koch brothers. Do you think the Koch brothers just want to blow away $70 million? Like they must have thought there was some type of chance.
So they already thought there was a chance. In a way, or at least it's what you believe. Yeah.
At least willing to take the punt. I mean, they know his strong name recognition. He was a president before. That's very hard to run against. But like, they were looking at the other variables, but clearly the base doesn't care. right?
So back to back to the Democrats. So they threw out Robert Kennedy, and in the last election they threw out.
Wasn't he under the Republican Party?
He
It's a
was
Republican Party, and then
he was a Democrat for a long time.
but then I think he was running under Republican, but he wasn't going to get it, so he became independent. And that's
He was
why-
he was running the
Democratic.
he was Democratic primary.
Yeah,
I didn't know
Correct.
that.
and
That's correct.
and 2 elections ago they threw out the what's that guy's name?
Bernie Sanders.
Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie had a shot. He had the name recognition back then, but that party.
So
Yeah.
so what is happening?
Oh, there's just no front contenders, right?
The Democrats have
They
no
do.
leader.
It's Biden. That's the best shot. He was
Right.
elected before. It's
But it's going to lose.
I mean, yeah. If you look at the polling that Dave mentioned, that's seems to be that that's going to have a lower
32%
turnout.
nationwide.
Yeah. So that data seems to point that probability. I mean, we can look at the was it the betting spread where in Vegas, whatever. Like there are people who put like bets on this, right? And usually they're quite accurate.
So
I mean, what are you asking, Jianggan? I'm not sure what the question is. Like, why are they running Biden?
why are they running Biden, not Kennedy? Why were they running Clinton, not Sanders?
But it's 2016.
I mean, I think the issue with this is a lot of politics comes down to name recognition, right? It's like, why do you think all these people spend so much money in primaries on ads? It's just to get the name recognition out there,
Yeah,
right? So
You have Kennedy.
yeah, but Joe Biden's also the incumbent president of the United States, right?
Which is a liability.
Since Kennedy was
Which I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was told by many people that his name is a liability.
his name is a liability. Yeah, it is a liability, but it's also like he's also the least worst option, or like he's basically the only option they have at this point, right? I mean, they feel like they
What's
have this
wrong with
option they have.
Kennedy?
Yeah, what's wrong with Kennedy?
What?
He's not fully mainstream. He had some issues that were not.
There's some controversy about his stance towards vaccines.
Yeah, and that doesn't probably speak well to the
So-
broader base on the liberal side for sure.
So basically, from the Democratic side, or maybe this applies to all the politics, right? Your objective is not for your party to win; it's for you to satisfy whatever your individual. I mean, for the big wigs in the party, so for your individual objective, your individual support base, your individual calculus. Can I say that?
I think you can make that argument. Yeah,
Maybe.
I think you made that argument.
If the Democrats think that they're not going to win, then everyone takes care of the.
No, that's true. That's true. That's true. That's true
that
for all
might be right.
politicians,
Mm.
right? Let's not make this a
Yeah.
Democratic Republican thing. Like all politicians
Then that
are
then,
ultimately self-motivated.
then,
But anyways, I would urge all users, right, to always watch Trump. I mean, we are shown by the media very short clips about Trump, all the things he says, right? But if you watch a full clip, it's a very different picture that turns out.
It's the same for both sides. The same thing that like right wing media will show by
Yeah.
short clips that make him look crazy. It's the same.
and just now,
It's a problem with media in general.
Just now, I think what you've mentioned, right, exactly points to Joe's point, right? Because Democrats do not have a strong leader. That's why, I mean, each person will have their own calculations, and collectively they will form a decision as they are forming now. You don't have somebody saying that, okay,
Yeah.
I'm a
It's a
dictator,
rational
or
thing.
I'm a whip, whatever,
It's a
in the
rational thing.
Democrat Party, and my objective is for the party to win the election.
The only thing I can say to that, that's unfortunately the system is bipartisan, by like two parties in the U.S., right? So it's not like we have a third option that's very viable. And of course, there's pros and cons to having like the multi-party system like that we see in the UK or like in Malaysia. Also, so it's just how the system is.
I mean, you could make an argument that they did this to themselves, right? By choosing Kamala Harris as the vice president. So if you remember back, if I go back to the 2020 election cycle, during the Democratic primary, Kamala Harris, I think, was like the least successful primary candidate. Like, I don't think she even gathered enough votes to be considered a real candidate or to be an eligible candidate. Let's not say real. And then when Joe Biden became the frontrunner, the nominee for the party, he literally said, "I'm going to pick a woman, like an ethnic minority women, to be my running mate." And then let's not get into like all the reasons that he might have thought that was smart.
Well, I think they're important because back then, if I remember correctly, the big criticism was that he was very susceptible to extreme left-wing ideology to like factors decisions and those things, right? Like his choice for running mates or what the topics he choose to like forgive education debt, this kind of stuff.
Those
Like,
are separate things.
but I mean, like, well, I mean, he's probably basing them off because it would be popular with a certain section of the base, right?
No, of course. I mean, that's he's pandering to certain. Yeah, let's call it what it is. Like he obviously had like intentions to choose who he chose, right?
Yeah.
But his criteria, he publicly announced. He says public information. Go Google it.
Yeah.
I'm going to, as I run, you may pick a minority woman.
Yeah.
Right. Full stop. He picks Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris has ended up to become, even though it was proven that she's incredibly politically unsavvy.
Unsavvy.
Clarify that and qualify that.
She's the least popular VP. And
Okay.
like,
Oh, you mean, well,
the last 100 years.
but that's like when she was,
No,
chosen to run on the ticket wasn't known, right?
No, it was no. During the primary process, when she was a primary candidate. She was a primary contender. She was literally last.
Oh,
Like, if she wasn't dead last, she was like pretty close to dead last.
but strategically, I guess the calculus back then must have been thought since Joe Biden's an old white man, he used that to make it more palatable for the rest of the base.
That's called tokenism, is what that is.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly.
That's just tokenism.
Oh,
That's pure
interesting,
tokenism, right?
American
But my point is, they
politics.
did this themselves,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
They picked an incredibly unpopular VP. So typically, what would happen in this situation, an easy out would be Biden is president. If he's too old to run, you would push the VP as the next in line, the heir to the throne, right? But because Kamala Harris is historically the least popular VP in like probably 100 years, that's a no-go for them. We can't do it, right? So that's kind of, I mean, it doesn't fully answer your question, but that's kind of one of the reasons why we're in the situation we're in right now, right? Because there are no viable alternatives.
Oh, I see. So they picked a more like a candidate that's better suited. But I think they were probably optimizing for getting him voted and didn't think that far down the road, probably, which is their fault then. Right?
No, because Joe Biden, during his inauguration, he said, "I am a transitional president." That's a Jordan quote. During his inauguration,
transitioning back to Trump.
no, I think transition back to Trump, right? No, during his inauguration, he's like, "I'm a transitional president," and so this also gets you in conundrum with the Democratic Party because they can't sideline the first Black female VP for Robert Kennedy, right?
Okay.
Where you're stuck in like this like catch-22 situation.
I'm very curious. Like,
But what is wrong with that? I mean, so your core support base is not
well, it's
going
very
to vote.
short-sighted.
Yeah,
isn't it?
your core support base is not going to vote for Trump anyway, and you appeal to more people in the middle.
Well, it's not. You have to get the basic Senate to come out and vote, because also why Hillary lost, with at least what the headlines were saying, was that because, people just didn't come out.
Yeah.
So you really need to activate the base too.
No, but it's an insult because are you arguing that minorities and women should only vote for this person because they're,
Yeah,
she's also, no, but that's
true though. It's kind of what you're saying. Yeah.
That's kind of the argument, right?
Yeah,
it should be based on, we're kind of back into like, equality of opportunity and that equality of outcome again, right? But like, it should be based on the merits, right? It should be based on, does this person represent my interests? Do I think they're competent? Do I think they're going to be good at the job? It shouldn't just because, she looks like me, therefore I should vote for her.
Well,
Right? That's insulting. That's degrading.
But that's why I say it's a short-term calculus, because they just wanted anyone to beat Trump in that time, and that's all they optimized for. They didn't optimize for a longer-term thinking, which is, one, get the vote, but also be competent as well, right? So I think maybe it's a misstep. That'd be my guess. I don't know.
So how do you guys think a potential Trump presidency will look like for the next 4 years? And who would benefit
I don't know.
most out?
I'm looking for the next 4 after that. I'm trying to skip this.
Next what? Next
So
more.
I'll make it easy for you, Alex. I'll make it easy transition for you. I think typically what happens, I think if Trump becomes elected, there's going to be, actually that's a good question. I don't know if there'll be escalation with China. That's a good question.
He'll maintain
I
his.
think less
he'll-
military escalation, a lot more trade
Yeah,
escalation.
probably. But
There'll be
It's always
trade.
been
Yeah,
about
so
trade.
you're right. Yeah, there'll be more. So I think who's going to benefit the most is actually people in Southeast Asia, right?
yeah,
Because the more trade escalation or trade conflict there is between the U.S. and the PRC,
yeah.
the more these like third-party countries or regions
More
will benefit.
geopolitical.
Right. So like
It's going to transition.
we're going to talk about Vietnam later. So Vietnam will probably like be a big beneficiary. Like manufacturing that used to be done in the PRC will be offshore, or
Yeah. offshore somewhere else. It's a good thesis. And because like that was the big theme during Trump's time. Like people were trying to, transition away from China and their benefits during COVID, right? So it's not a bad thesis. And like what we discussed in previous episodes was that it's very hard to beat China's moat around manufacturing. The amount of investment and money you would need is incredible. And maybe this is part of the tailwinds that behind this.
But that strategy has not brought back the manufacturing jobs to America, right? It has just like nearshored it all around the world. So maybe he wouldn't take this approach anymore.
Joon,
because his
is the
original
objective
intent-
really to bring manufacturing back to China, or he really wants to, or is
Wait, to bring manufacturing
Like
back to China or away from China? Yeah,
No,
back to America. Yeah,
America. But it's not happening, right? This policy
No,
is not
it's
working that
working.
way.
It's working. If you look at the Fed board, I think like there's been more manufacturing jobs created in the U.S. in the last like 3 or 4 years, and there have been.
That's because of the CHIPS Act.
Yeah, but I mean,
That's because of the chip Act by Biden.
yeah, but
you
it's a
know?
continuation of
It's
the same
not
thing.
one of Trump's
But
policies.
this is actually an interesting point because I think like
yeah.
Biden's trade policy with China has actually been more aggressive than Trump's original trade. It's not a new policy. Biden just adopted Trump's policy
and he
and
continued.
it like wrapped it up actually,
Yeah.
right? So Trump comes back into office.
Well,
It'll be a
it's a bit
continuation of
different.
that.
Like the CHIPS Act. The CHIPS Act was where the government will put in money,
Yeah,
to
correct.
back it up. Trump never did that.
No, but he started it. It's like the same thing, right?
Trump wanted to let the market. Trump wanted to let the market decide by having tariffs, right? Manufacturing
Yeah.
come back to the States. But Biden, tried tariffs, didn't work, and he said, "Okay, fuck it, we're just gonna lend money
Yeah.
out to all these semicon players,
Yeah,
right, to
correct.
build over here. Not lend,
it's
give
grants.
money.
Yeah,
out.
it's grants. Yeah. But the thing is, like, once you've started that grant process, it's going to snowball, right? Because then the government, that's a way for you to get votes, to get support. So once that process has been started, both parties will continue that policy, right? So
Mhm,
that's what I'm
mhm.
saying.
Well, I don't think
You
it's
don't
gonna
think
work. So no, they're gonna build and they're gonna have a chip that costs too much.
Not if they,
So it's back to the
not
market.
if they use more like technology, robotics, this kind of stuff. I don't know. It's hard to say.
It's already on the highest end of technology how chips are
Out
made, right?
Around
I
the
have,
world,
so
the
I
US has more
actually,
advanced
I
tech
do
than
know a
Taiwan
little bit
and
about
China.
this. I don't think it's going to work, but for a
Mhm.
different reason than what you think, right? Because the CHIPS Act,
Oh, okay.
I believe, is targeted towards the highest end of chips. So the 3nm and below, right? So that's like the bleeding edge of semiconductors,
Mhm.
right? But the market is already incentivized to create those chips anyway, because that's where the most technological advanced use cases are going to come from. That's where AI is going to
AI, yeah.
right? So there's already incentive. If you want to implement government subsidy effectively, you need to implement it on a level where the market may not necessarily want to go there, right? And that would be like the previous generation of chips. So those chips are still incredibly important
Yeah.
because those are the ones that run your car, runs your fridge, runs your TV, all that stuff, right? But because they're no longer the latest generation, the manufacturer, no one's incentivized to
Mhm.
build those in the
Yeah.
US. So if they actually wanted to be effective with the CHIPS Act, they should have incentivized like 2 or 3 generations ago. But that's
Too late.
Well, I mean, things will change it.
Well, I
Right.
mean, like it, but would these be in declining margins given like Moore's law?
That's exactly why you need subsidies
Yeah.
because that's exactly
to do it.
that's
okay.
exactly why you need
So
government
you take a
subsidies.
loss in the short
Yeah,
term to
because the
let
market
renew.
is the market will chase after the most profitable chips, which is the high end chips,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
So that will already sort itself out. So if you're going to sit here and give out government grants, you need to subsidize things so the market wouldn't do naturally, which
Yeah.
is the lower end of chips.
Yeah.
That's my argument.
Okay, guys, let's close out. If you guys were Americans, who would you vote for and why? Not Americans.
Good question.
We already know who we're voting for.
I don't actually. I'm undecided.
Who are you voting for?
I'm undecided.
None of your business. I mean, you should be able to tell. You should be able to tell, right? Come on.
If I was American, I'll vote for Trump. I think so would Jianggan.
Probably. I think
I-
I believe Jianggan would vote for Trump.
I would say none of your business, but
Yeah. But we know.
But you know
Yeah,
our
we know.
faces.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know you too.
I have no goat. I have no horse in this fight. I've lived in America like 12 years.
Yeah, I think Dave likes to be very logical about stuff and comes out a certain way, but like you never know how he really votes in the end, though. So we'll see. Well, we won't see actually. You won't
If they
see. You won't
vote
see.
independent, if they vote independent and you go a Democrat, that means Trump wins in this little 4 little country we have over
So if
here.
you look at the numbers, I checked this.
Yes,
Dave's
this is
a
not
swing
about
vote.
the numbers
Dave's a
in the
swing vote.
States.
Oh my God.
Actually, my vote is arguably more important than every other person combined because I'm a swing vote in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin
New
is
Jersey doesn't matter.
Wisconsin. I think like Biden only won Wisconsin by like 0.4% last election cycle. It was one of the 3 states that's won the election. The margins are very thin.
Come
Actually.
on, Wisconsin.
So if you look at the total number of registered voters, right? There's 35.6 million registered Republicans versus 48 million registered Democrats in the US. And then there's like another 30 some independents, right? But then if you go back and apply the ratios about how enthusiastic people feel about their respective candidates, right? Remember, like 70% of people are super enthusiastic about Trump on the Republican side, but actually the number is 57, not 37, I'm sorry. 57% of people are super enthusiastic about Biden, and then once you factor in the independent vote, it becomes a very narrow margin for him.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, I think,
should we move on?
I think
to
we
the
could just
next
skip
topic?
ahead to Vietnam since it kind of ties into this topic, right? So depending on how the U.S. election plays out, one of these geopolitical risks or the ways you want to divest is maybe investing in countries like Vietnam. Jianggan shared an article from The Economist. The title was something like, Vietnam, the best place to become rich or something. I forget the exact title, but I'll share it in the description. But Vietnam, it's in a very interesting position to maybe benefit from the fallout from the U.S. election or whatever you want to call it. Vietnam, since the Vietnam War, has had to maintain, neutrality, and it's been a very strong political agenda to make sure that they're not tied to one country or another again. Right? They want to be strongly independent, and they're trying to build toward that future. So, being next to China, and having a history of the U.S., they're always trying to balance this. So, I don't know, Jianggan, do you have anything specific you want to talk about from the article, or like what caught your eye with this topic?
No, I think Vietnam has been always an interesting country in Southeast Asia. Culturally, it's probably more East Asian compared to other Southeast Asian countries. Historically, I think it started the sort of liberalization and reform of the economy much later compared to the others. So if you look at the base of the economy, right, the GDP per capita stuff, it's far behind everybody else. And the major, I think in terms of
It was like
5-6%, and Vietnam and the Philippines are definitely far ahead of everybody else in terms of annual growth rate. And Vietnam has an interesting political system. I mean, if you try to draw parallels between the top of the Communist Party of Vietnam now, you see a lot of similarities between that and the Communist Party of China at the moment. So, but at the same time, it's I mean, at least when Biden is the president, it gets lots of good treatment from the US. So it's itself in a very, very interesting position, and also manufacturing. I'm moving from China to Vietnam, but I know that manufacturers that have moved there still are deeply plugged into the supply chain of China. So here's a country, 100 million people, very entrepreneurial, very
well educated.
how do you qualify that?
That's a good question. Probably by university graduates, I would imagine.
I usually look at people's education level by how fast they can do math, and I've made a bunch of like social.
Well, I'm very
Well,
uneducated.
they rank really high in the PISA scores. One of the top 10.
Chinese.
Yeah, he's very Chinese.
He's so Chinese.
University graduate can't do the calculation of 14.5 times 3 without using.
He's still talking about this.
I mean, that
Well, university education has standards, right? Different universities, different systems have
That's
different
true, yeah.
standards. But if you just look at how fast someone can count, right? That's just quite. That's a different measure.
It
of
is a different.
intelligence,
I mean, some people are just innately better.
Yeah, I don't think how well someone does math is a good indication of.
I think he's
Of
being
how
facetious.
intelligent
He's
they
being
are.
facetious. We know that.
He's Chinese. We don't have sarcasm.
Yes, it was killed in the Cultural Revolution.
No,
Yeah.
it's kind of a good predictor. There are reaction times.
Okay.
There's how fast you can what's your
I
working
think
memory?
I think we'll go.
that's it. But
I mean, the point is like what you're
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
is like the China plus one. What we talked about that just now, right? Like it's people are betting on that there will be more diversification in the way of manufacturing and building infrastructure. But like we said earlier in the last one of the previous episodes, that it's not that easy. Like I don't like probably government support plus FDI and even more skilled labor is needed to probably replicate anything similar to what China has, right? So it's not the China plus one kind of thesis is not as easy as people think.
it's you can't say it's China plus one because Vietnam, what's the population
100
of
million,
Vietnam?
100
78
million
million?
plus. Yeah.
100 million plus. So at most it's maybe 2 provinces of China.
One.
Right? So imagine if all the industry of 2 provinces shifted there, that's it. That's all this country can take on. So that's the whole point of BRI. It opens up so much more of this countries
BRI?
adjacent to China, right, with more population, yeah, to start manufacturing too. Like, can you say that at all? Almost all manufacturing from China goes to Vietnam. It's impossible because they're still limited by the land size, by the population, by the supply chain. So it will spread out all over ASEAN and the world, including Myanmar, Pakistan, Bangladesh. It's already happening. Even Latin America, Mexico is receiving so much now.
I mean, people already even complain. People always say China's already too expensive if you're buying goods from there or producing goods to sell in your own country, right? But also people also will complain that Vietnam is already getting expensive too. It depends on your category, what you're selling. But you already are seeing this trend where the wealth is spreading, things are getting more cost of rising. So I think what Joon's point stands, I think we will see even more spreading. But we are just talking about the case for Vietnam, right? So it's still very far from very mature and developed, right? It's still not even a middle income country, like by far, right? Like in 6,000 GDP per capita, is that the case, right?
I think
So, and I don't know what like middle income is defined as, like what 10 plus. So
I think GDP per capita in Vietnam is about 2.5 thousand or 2.7 thousand or maybe
is it?
thousand.
Oh, maybe I was thinking PPP. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I don't look at PPP. Sorry. Yeah.
But I mean, the biggest impediment to Vietnam really, like, so if you want to compare China, right, to Vietnam, which is they're probably the closest in terms of system and how they run, China was able to probably step out corruption and foster the growth. Like, do you think Vietnam can do the same?
I don't think that China is having a very good track record of stemming out the corruption based on what
at least to foster growth. I mean, corruption is always in every country, probably the highest level, but you want to clear as much as possible from the bottom to the middle, right? Otherwise, things just don't progress forward. Am I wrong?
I mean, we have corrupt officials, which essentially becomes a tax to the economy, right? And if the tax is in a tolerable level at the economy size of China, and I think for a long time it's something that people said was a necessary cost. I mean, until the last few years, I think Vietnam has huge anti-corruption drive now. Does it end up like benefiting the economy, or does it end up like having some secondary degree consequences that we're not aware of? We don't know. I mean, but it seems that first the leadership of Vietnam, right? I mean, third term, he's like 10 years older than Xi Jinping, or 9 years older than Xi Jinping. So how long will he stay in power? If he gets out of power, would the politics be stable? And I mean, this is what happens when we look at these countries with run by elites, but not really a democratic system. It's I mean, how much continuity you because you need continuity.
Well, why do you think Vietnam's continuity would be a problem? I mean, if they've been running the Chinese style system for quite a while, right? They should have at all levels in the Politburo, right?
Someone to replace,
capable, experienced person that.
I mean, they should have planned for this, no?
They won't run into this American problem.
I think American problem is less of a problem because, I mean, at society level, you still have free enterprises. I mean, you don't like Delaware, you move to Texas. You don't like California, you move to Texas. So there's still lots of choices. And in the case of China, I mean, historically, you also had choices, right? I mean, if the industrial policy of your province is fucked, I mean, you go to another province.
I don't know enough, but I don't know. I'm trying to get at what Jianggan is worrying about. Like, okay, there's an old premier now in Vietnam, but do we know enough about his potential, successors?
We don't. We don't.
Are they going to be
And
good?
I don't think I don't think we're sure that who might succeed him. I mean, if he would to retire, and also the problem is that even if you do know, I mean, some succession is always a tricky affair, right? Things might change, things might not change. And the people at the highest echelon might do things or might not. So we don't know. So that creates uncertainty. I mean, this year, I think Singapore is going to have a transition as well, and some. Yeah,
to Lawrence. That guy is very different, eh? Well, it's Singapore's first experimentation, to someone like Lawrence.
Mm.
Don't know if it'll work or not. I don't know. Well, we gotta see how that turns out. But we should talk about that
Okay.
the next time.
Well, I mean, the other thing the Economist article pointed out was maybe energy security, right? So when we're talking about, infrastructure, we're talking about continuity, but also we're talking about corruption, and then energy security is also very important. Do you think Vietnam will just follow China? Because I mean, you look at Vin Group, and that's their like local hero, and they're exporting EVs. They listed on the Nasdaq, right? They're pretty much the only like something similar to like a Chalbu for Vietnam. They don't have many kind of companies in Southeast Asia. So like, do you think this is the right approach? Do you think they're going to be able to get energy security? They're going to have to fill out, I mean, essentially all these things that they can check it off, right? Kind of points to being able to become like a high income country by their target of 2045. Do you guys think this is going to happen?
I think Vietnam's energy security is a regional thing. They would need, I mean, are they at a point where they're going to leapfrog coal and
I think no
and
country
natural
can
gas
really.
and go into mostly,
You would need so much government coordination to do that, right? Like I feel most countries cannot. Like it's very, very iterative of like, like natural gas and combined gas cycle engines. And like, it's just like, it's very, like you can't leapfrog energy infrastructure very easily, right?
I don't know. There are a couple of Malaysian companies that have been to Vietnam to build out their power infrastructure, right? And most of the time they go with gas. I mean, gas is readily available.
It's readily
to
available,
Vietnam.
and it's relatively like a newer technology for a country like Vietnam. It's still like I don't think you easily just jump to also learn.
So they might skip coal, right, and have a mix of gas, solar, and wind, and hydro.
Okay, Jianggan, what do you think?
I think Vietnam's the whole. I mean, the tricky situation is that how far it wants to be integrated with China economically.
Why?
Economically, because you have manufacturing in Vietnam, sourcing materials from China. You have the government, regardless of how much they dislike China as northern neighbor, and that they share the same sort of political system. And if there's anything wrong with the China political system, I think the top echelon of the Communist Party of Vietnam will feel that they are left defenseless. So how do they balance that, right? I mean, also at the end of the day, they also rely on China as a big export market for lots of their products. They also import lots of things from China. I mean,
but they can't become. Sorry, go ahead.
I was at the border.
They're still hungover from the 1978,
that takes one generation to forget.
Well, policy-wise, it shouldn't though. It's a real existential problem, right? So
it is.
I mean, that's why they diversify, they open relations with the U.S. too. I mean, their policy is to be self-sufficient.
They're balancing, yeah.
They can't. I mean, China is very important. They can't ignore it. They have to work with them, but they can't be overly, risked, to China. All right, so.
Yeah, that's why you see Cambodia is doing the same calculation. That therefore, that's very close to China.
Yeah, all the border countries. It makes sense. Like the other thing we talked about too, though, like the big elephant in the room that no one talks about is the Red Sea, the quote unquote South China Sea disputes, right? Between Philippines, Vietnam, and all those countries and shared waters. It's a big issue that also throw this into the mix, and it's more risk.
How much of that is a real issue, or how much of that is rhetoric? Aside from what's happening between China and the Philippines at the moment, and if Trump,
I mean, you saw the Middle East escalate out of nowhere.
I think between Vietnam and China, they're the only one that has settled.
Oh, they've settled, really?
The disputes between Vietnam and China.
I missed that news.
Yes. They have clearly put aside the differences and say, okay, these islands are ours.
But you still seen the news
of anymore.
Each side going into each other's waters.
No, I don't know. Between
Joon, they still have fights.
I don't think they have.
It is not a settlement.
No, the Barbie move got canceled because of this in Vietnam, because I remember this very clearly, because I don't know if you've seen the movie, but in the film there's this in the Barbie movie, in the Barbie film, there's a scene where they show the map of Southeast Asia, and then that map show, quote unquote, the 9-dash line that China claims is its territory. And then the movie
I don't think you should be quoting from a Barbie movie, bro.
No, it's an issue still. It's still an issue.
My point is, it's still an issue. If it was settled, then why is that still like...
No. Okay, Alex can look it up and edit it in, what the reality is, okay? But I'm pretty sure, I'm on the right track.
We're consuming different media, clearly.
I get all my news from Barbie. Okay.
Iran shot a missile into Pakistan. Pakistan shot a missile back, and they condemn each other. They are still the best friends.
No, but then so the Houthis attacked the U.S., but now U.S. is bombing Syria and Iraq. Which what does that have to do with Iran? I don't know. Like it's like my point is like these things can
Because
just come
Iran
out.
is behind it all. If I could tell, it's always been the rhetoric that Iran is behind it all, which is true.
Then why are you bombing random countries? I mean, I don't know the actual details, but like it's just like
Because you're touching, Iran's friends, without touching Iran.
I see. Okay, yeah, but my point still stands.
Yeah.
Like it is a real issue that could control, right? But I mean, no, I guess no, maybe less so because no one really wants to fight with China. So
No, I think
that's one deterrent.
I think at the end of the day, for any country in Southeast Asia, I mean, if you want this thing to go out of control, if you want to confront China, you must have some strong backing from someone. Otherwise, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Correct.
So at the moment, I think the Philippines has some strong backing. I don't know from him, but he probably gets from home that they're taking a confrontational approach. And of course, is that because they're calculating that if Trump comes to power, they can't take this approach anymore? I don't know.
I mean, we should probably talk to some from the Philippines because I remember.
I think it's just Biden's strategy, to use the Philippines to poke a bit here more. I mean,
Well, Vietnam's
they could be
important too.
thinking as part of the calculus, right? That more conflict might lead to, Biden staying in power.
I think you need
Or
someone from
somehow.
the Philippines.
Or at least, handing over a shit show to Trump.
No, because this is the Philippines. This is it's the opposite of what Duterte was doing. So when Duterte, the previous president of the Philippines, was in power, the relationship with China was overall quite positive.
Yeah,
So-
no, less with U.S.
Yeah, and then so because you're right? Like I think like with the calculus with every Southeast Asian country is you have these two. You can't be too aggressive with China, right? But at the same point, their goals are oftentimes in direct conflict with what your goals are, right? So how do you play these two sides off each other is the question. And I think my question is like in Philippines, what happened, right? We went from Duterte, who was pretty chummy, I would argue, with Xi Jinping and the CCP, now to Bongbong, and now there's a lot more overt. There's just more conflict in general, right? So but like, gotta fight some Philippines with that.
So what do you think about Vietnam, Dave? Do you think they're going to be able to become a high-income country by 2045? What do you think? Besides having delicious food and there to eat, what do you think?
I think the potential of Vietnam would be just, to be one of the provinces that China has transferred over to them. So to that level, maybe like
You're just going
10K
to piss off
USD,
everybody.
15,000
That's like the
USD
whole
per capita.
that's whole history that
But it's a fact. Like you logically got to think, right, on what's happening there. It's just certain provinces transferring, what's not profitable making China anymore, or what they can't export anymore because of tariffs, right, over to Vietnam.
I see what you
And
mean.
it'll just grow at its own natural
I
rate.
thought you meant like politically as a province. That's not a good narrative for him.
I mean, to get to high income, one has obviously got to find
Yeah,
each
correct.
niche, right, in science and tech,
Right.
So I don't think Vietnam has that kind of.
So if you look at
scientific
the GDP per capita of Vietnam now, and if you assume that they will grow at the rate of about 5% per annum, then they will reach. I mean, I'm looking at GDP per capita, not the GDP. Yeah. So they will reach about 10,000 in 2044, which makes them a mid-income country.
Yeah. Well, by that, right? Malaysia's going to be high income very soon too, though.
Malaysia has not moved for 10 years.
No,
the GDP is growing. I mean, I don't know about GDP capital, but GDP is growing about like what 5%.
Dude, what's high income, mid income? You can't take an arbitrary number, right? It's all relative. Right?
No, there's certain definitions.
10,000 in 20 years time might be low income.
There are actual definitions, right? That there's like certain organizations we
Yeah.
all look at the same metric. It's something like 10 to 12,000 per capita, right? USD.
Yeah.
There are certain metrics.
I think
Yeah.
I think as a country which is so close to China and has a political system which is very much aligned to that of China, but as a country which historically has defended fiercely its independence, so Vietnam will have a balancing act to play for the next 20 years, right? I mean, how do you reap the benefits by this geographical proximity and by this potential integration of the supply chain. At the same time, not becoming too dependent on China, which means like introducing the Korean interest, introducing the Western interest to balance that out. So I think it's an interesting balancing game, and how well they can play it. I don't know. I mean, it depends on who the top leaders will be. I mean, this is the system. If the leader is good, then if the leader is good, benevolent, and he has a real sense of what's going on, and then he makes good decisions. If the leadership, if what the leadership has is only the equal chamber, he will not make wise decisions. I mean, it's like goes back to imperial times. But that said, I mean, it's impossible for the leadership of a country to know everything that's going on. So you can't go back to the planned economy. It just doesn't work.
Yes, of course. I mean, there's no real pure, planned economy. I mean, like no capital, like communist countries, right? So everyone's more or less capitalist these days. So for the final topic,
Even North Korea.
So for the final topic, what do you guys want to talk about? Do you want to talk about your food delivery report? I mean, we don't have much time left, right? So
I might need to run because yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The growth is really flat, huh? That's it, huh? 5-6% for the past 2 years.
The growth is flat for the last 2 years, and this year is interesting that many players from one certain country came to us. Everybody came to us saying that, hey, you underestimated our market share. I said, by how much? And then they give me a number. I said, how do you think about the macro number? And everyone says that, okay, macro number is about right. And everyone says that we underestimated their market share. Then we said, okay, then we did exercise to add everyone's market share, everyone's claimed market share that adds up to 121%. So I was thinking that a possible reason is we might have overestimated the market size by saying that it's flat. It might have shrunk in that particular country. I would not say.
Oh, interesting.
I would not say.
Interesting.
Okay, that could come with the outcome. Or everyone is overestimating.
And of course, it's very difficult for anybody to come to us saying that, oh, our market has shrunk. I mean, how do you go back then and go and tell your investors? But at the end of the day, we look at
just adjusted in EBITDA.
We look at this market. It's
fine. No problem, guys.
It's growing at 5%. I think Grab is more than half. And it becomes less of a like startup game. It's like a growth equity game, right? I mean, how do you become profitable and leaving valuation aside?
I mean, you can only do it via consolidation, right? Like, who's buying Food Panda? Like that's I think it's maybe just the question I want to know. Who's buying Food Panda? Do you have any insights for us, Jianggan?
I don't know. I don't think anybody wants.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody wants to buy it.
I think I read today the latest news, reported by New Straits Times. Someone said the price Delivery Hero was asking for was way too high, so the deal is dead.
So I think Grab probably didn't want to pay whatever price that was asked. And Meituan calculated, I mean, they told the analysts that they were not going to buy Food Panda because they didn't believe they would ever make money. But also, you know that from organizational point of view, I mean, Meituan buys, I mean, they have such a tough battle to fight in China. If they want to expand outside China, I mean, who do they send? The top executives are not going to come. And if you send someone junior, I mean, if you send someone who is not good enough, they are not going to be able to deal with the complexities of all these markets. And if you say someone good and you're wasting talent, where you could have more value by keeping that person in China. So
it's an opportunity cost.
So what do you think Grab's calculus is? If they just wait it out, Food Panda closes down, they'll get the market anyway.
And also now, if you think about the sort of antitrust regulators, right? I mean, Grab's potentially announced acquisition of Transcab, a taxi company in Singapore. Now it's entering the second phase of review, which they said it would take 120 working days. That's like, I mean, even if they get agreement, they are not going to close the deal by the first half of this year. And by acquiring Food Panda in what, 5 countries? 4 countries?
I mean, look, Delivery Hero has already shown its hand. Like in all the other markets, right? They don't sell, they close. So it's very predictable what he'll do. So if I were Grab, like, and having seen this hand being played all over the world, why would I buy it? Doesn't make sense.
Exactly. So what they would probably do, just, I mean, if they can be sure that Meituan is not going to buy it, what they can do is just wait. wait until a moment that regulators come to them and say that, okay, we don't want to run into a situation where Food Panda is closing down and that's going to disrupt lots of things. How about you take it over? And then they go to
this
delivery
is
saying, hey, how about I take it over for like, I don't know, €1?
do you guys Jianggan, do you think everyone at this point is just going to stay in their lanes? Gojek will stay in Gojek. Lineman will keep just took over Thailand, and then no one's going to like try to engage in competition because ultimately that's going to hurt the margins, right? Are we set and everyone's just going to stay in their lanes because
No, I think Grab would just be the monopoly already. One by one, they all would just merge or fall. Yeah. But even with even with 100% of the market, right? Then you can't say the whole food has been growing, that much overall, right? Well, where's Grab going to double its revenue now to support their
we've talked
current
about this in the
valuation?
past? Yeah.
No, I think
PE.
there's still a lot that Grab can do to optimize. If you look at what they have done last year, there's like lots of small fees they added here. There's lots of like a small sort of percentage they added there, and each of
Yeah, but I looked at your pyramid, right? Will there be a situation where they can do $2 orders? I don't think so.
depending
Is
on
that
the
happening
country,
in China?
I don't know.
Does it have the
No.
density? Would people will delivery riders themselves pay for the service? I don't know. So it might just grow as fast as the middle class can grow.
Yeah, I think it's a fair thesis. But that also depends.
Yeah. So how will it double its revenue? How will Grab double its revenue? Unclear. Ride-hailing can grow from there. Food delivery can grow from there. What's the new
I wouldn't say
vertical?
that there is any like silver bullet for them to double. They have to do a lot of things to increase the efficiency here and there. At the end of the day, it might amount to something. It might amount to I don't know. So being efficient enough that the more segments of market will be open and they can serve this market in a profitable way. I think they're doing some. They're getting some traction. I remember it's like 100 million in terms of advertising revenue. So you do have the lot of brands who allocate their budget. How much potential there is, I don't know. But you can see that as an organization, they're looking at getting a bit of like addition there, a bit of addition there, here and there. So this is how they have to do things moving forwards.
I think Grab's in the position of Uber 3 years ago when the new CEO took over. So if you look at how Uber has been for the past 3 years, this is Grab's future.
Uber's in like much more profitable, bigger markets globally, right? So it's not necessarily a good, not one-for-one comparable, right?
So then you have a Grab which has lower valuation than Uber. So what's the problem with that?
Nothing wrong. Yeah, but it's not going to be as like, living up to that crazy valuations that we've seen in the past, right?
Yeah, at the end of the
day,
day,
it just grows steadily.
I think at this stage, people care more about, how do we make this a profitable business in terms of free cash flow and in terms of net income. So this is something that they need to work with.
Yeah. Once they get to the point of a very strong free cash flow, right, they can easily take more markets on. They can go to Pakistan, Bangladesh, all new markets they're not in, and become the number one there too. So that might be the case of how they'll grow big, but not by more verticals, but just expanding their market.
Has Seagrou's strategy been kind of like somewhat aligned, like because they did food as well, they're opening up other verticals. So what does this mean for Seagroup then? Yeah.
Oh man, that takes another episode because it's not only about the strategy, it's also about the people you have, how do they make decisions, and what they have done in the past years where things were good, and how they translate themselves into a world of precision where you can't like bliss scale, you can't sort of watch over things. You have to look at efficiency at every single level, and that requires a very different skill set, different muscle. That requires probably different executives at different levels. So that part is actually not that straightforward, and that requires, I think,
isn't that what Grab is?
Sorry,
isn't that what Grab is now?
I think that's what all the companies are. If you look at the Grab leadership, it's very different from leadership 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you know Anthony, has a 65% voting share in Grab with only 3% of shareholding? So he's still king there. He can make decisions.
That's how it's structured, right?
So that might want to be the biggest advantage Grab has over all other players, right? There's still one emperor.
Yes, but also at this stage, he doesn't need to, and he doesn't want to make drastic decisions. I think the relentless execution is what people need to do to reach a level of free cash flow. Then he can probably make some decisions too.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what his grandfather would say.
Yeah, I think this is good fodder for a future episode. Jianggan, you have to run or no?
I have to run. I have a call with MC in China about hosting Joon and other people in China.
Okay.
Oh yeah, about that, man. I looked at the price. Damn, it's gonna be
I'll talk
hard
to you
for me
separately
to
about
do it,
that.
man.
Anymore, man. No, don't get a discount, Jianggan. Don't you get it?
Are you
for
going to China too?
No, you're traveling. You're traveling.
I don't know when this trip is.
Did,
It's in March
did Sabrina not give you a discount? Too? Cool.
in the US.
Okay, I need to run. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll talk more about this topic in the next episode.
Okay, bye,
It's
Jiang.
good episode, guys, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye. Which makes it quite interesting, right? Like one deal you make quite a lot of money, you know.
What is this? What is this for?
It's for a mid-market investment bank that specializes in SPAC listings. So, They-
SPAC still a thing?
yeah, it's a big thing apparently still. I mean,
Maybe for smaller
Yes,
sizes.
it's still 23andMe is back.
Go from
It
6
still
mil
happens
straight to
all
zero.
the time.
no, I mean, it's a real product, right?
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
Like SMEs, companies need capital.
Yep.
They don't want to
they
go
wanna-
through the hassle of an IPO or
Yeah, it's
you
true.
know private fundraising exercise.
It was just very noisy at one point.
yeah,
It's
there's
a real product. Yes, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
it's a real product that fills a real need, and then like there's a lot of Malaysian just
In Malaysia, there's a lot of probably opportunity for that. Makes sense.
there is. So the person I was talking to told me that Malaysia has a lot of like opportunity for SPAC listings. Like I said, I didn't want the job because it's like a straight hardcore sales job, and that is not what I want to do at this point in my life. So
I mean, not.
Yeah.
Hey, Jianggan, did you find a job for me yet? I need some employment. I'll give people discounts.
What
does that even mean?
Why don't you just do advertisement here and just appeal to the
That's Singapore.
viewers
to all
of
200
Barbies.
to all
Yeah.
100 listeners of this podcast.
Yeah.
No, pass on.
Here's Dave and was never bashed, C Group and who wants a job.
I think Dave, you have to start your own company. It's about time,
I
man.
did that once and I failed, which is why I made this position in the first place. I had a
Okay.
great corporate. I
That's why you
I
gotta
had a
do it
great
again.
corporate career. Okay, first of all, what they tell you about entrepreneurship is a lie. There's a huge opportunity cost, right?
Of
I had a
course.
great corporate career. I took some time off to start the company. It didn't work out, and then like I can't get back on that train anymore. Like that boat has sailed. I could have had a really cushy corporate job, get paid a lot of money, do very little work, have been very, very comfortable in my life, and that.
So exactly. Now you have no boats left besides
now I'm- yeah.
entrepreneurship. To get back
That's
on
right.
it, man.
Yeah, I can be an obligate entrepreneur. Yes.
But I thought my understanding about
Exactly what I've
corporate
done
job
to
is that you can always go back to it.
That's a lie. It's not. That's a lie. That's a lie. No, it's not a lie. But
No, I
like,
don't think you can.
if you're
You've been
on
on too long.
if you're on a certain track, and you get off that track, you can't go back on that track.
Okay.
Right? You can get the corporate job again. Like if you had like a job where you were like, I don't know, some VP somewhere, right? You can go back and get that VP job. That's true. But like if you're on a track where you're going to be like MD by the time you're like in your late 30s, early 40s, and you get off that track, you can't get back on that again. So that's what they don't tell you.
Is that
Well, that's what they want. That's what no one talks about.
is that the reason why?
Or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm incompetent and no one wants to hire me. So fair, right? It's my own experience. So, well, it also depends how hard you conform yourself to the situation. I bet you're good enough at sales that you could probably, like, you have to try really hard. It's probably high volume work and not,
But
I don't know. It's probably like,
But sort of you always
Not
have
work.
to conform yourself to the situation, right? Even if you're entrepreneur, I mean,
for,
you face a lot of constraints that you have to constrain yourself, and it's actually quite tiring. Very, very
yeah,
tiring.
of course.
Mhm.
You know, it's a question if you want to play that game or not.
But
I don't think I can do it.